this load shedding has been somewhat challenging for us. Hey, wow.
It has been super challenging.
Cool. And I'm just going to record us as well so that I can just keep it on my computer. Awesome. I love saying awesome when I'm with Shelly.
I love it when people say awesome with me.
Anyways, well, welcome to the Marketing Lifeline's Friendly Friday in conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who also just like to share and share alike. We have been rather quiet for the last couple of months, rather resharing some of our amazing content we have. But now we're going to start our second half of the year with some great entrepreneur insights to help us grow in our own businesses and ourselves, to be honest. So today we're joined by the lovely Shelly Berger of Figured Out. And she's going to be sharing with us a little bit about bookkeeping for beginners. And we're going to unpack some questions that maybe you've even asked, because there are definitely some questions that I've asked in my business. So thanks so much for joining us, Shelly. I really appreciate it and look forward to what you have to share with us.
Cool. Let's do this.
So yeah, Shelly's given us a very short bio. I said she definitely needs a little bit more cred than what she's given us, but I'll read the short intro, but I'm sure a lot of it will be unpacked in the questions to follow. So equipped with a pharmaceutical degree and more recently financial accounting, Shelly began her entrepreneurial journey in 2009 with her very first carpet and upholstery cleaning business called Awesome. Hence the fact I love to use the word awesome, where her love for helping entrepreneurs thrive began. 1 year ago, Shelly then started Figured Out alongside Awesome because she has joy in supporting other entrepreneurs. Her key to success is small, consistent steps towards a clear goal. Yep, and a very good one indeed. So let's kick off straight into Figured Out and how did it also come to life? It's always nice to hear your little bit of entrepreneurial journey as well. Although I know it started in 2009, but let's look at the more recent Figured Out.
Cool. So Figured Out began because of lockdown, and I was sitting, and small businesses have a very special place in my heart because I'm a very family orientated person, and I know from developing a small business that when a small business succeeds, it's a whole family that succeeds. It's a whole family that gets moved forward and is their lifestyles are improved. When a small business closes, it's a whole family that is impacted by that, and then all the families that go with that small business, the blue collar staff and stuff like that. So small businesses play a huge role in our economy. And I was sitting chatting to my hubby who I ran Awesome with, and saying to him, we are very fortunate that we were able to survive during lockdown. And even though we had our essential services permit, being a cleaning company, we chose to limit our exposure because our son has a comorbidity. And so we deliberately made the choice to drop our income or limit our income potential for the first couple of months in lockdown, to keep our family safe. And I was sitting and saying to him, we're actually so lucky because all of these small businesses are closing left, right, and center. And we've been able to not only sustain our lifestyle, but we haven't had to change our lifestyle in any way. In fact, our expenses increased because now 2 children at home, instead of eating breakfast, lunch, and supper, are now eating 14 meals a day. And we managed to do that through our savings. And I said to him, we're really fortunate that we were in the position that we could do that. And he stopped me because he says I don't give myself enough credit, which I don't, clearly. But he stopped me and he said to me, he is grateful for it, but it's not out of luck. It's the way I've managed our finances, the way I've been so aware of our spending habits, the way I've controlled what we spend and how we spend throughout the years, that's allowed us to have a savings stash, for lack of a better word, that will give us this ability to maintain our lifestyle even when income isn't there. And then with that I was like, okay, well surely this is like common knowledge. What I do is not I didn't think it was rocket science what I was doing. I was just very aware of our finances. And as I started investigating, I found that, it's a big lack, especially in small businesses, especially in those owner operated businesses, the guys that are hands-on. They have a trade, they have a skill, they go out and they physically do the work themselves. Perhaps with a small team, but generally they are the business. And those guys generally tend to, as the money come in, they pay the bills. In times of plenty, their lifestyle increases. And then when times are not so great, the stress levels are astronomical. And so I found out that there was a real gap. There was a real need for this in small business. And the reason why a lot of the small businesses folded is purely because there was absolutely no savings. They could not sustain even the slightest expense or themselves with no income. And to me, that was a very scary realization. And so JP said to me, well, you have this knowledge, you have the ability to help people, and you enjoy helping people. And because I've put so much hours into Awesome, it doesn't need my constant attention anymore. So go start this and start it with the intention of supporting small businesses establish themselves and become aware of their finances to the point where they can be sufficient or secure one day if another whatever happens. And so that's it. And so Figured Out was born primarily to support small owner operated businesses. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes with that, obviously the compliance and things like that. But my main aim with Figured Out is to get small business and their entrepreneurs into a place of security and to become aware of their finances. And I do it at what I feel is an affordable rate, because a lot of the time, small businesses don't outsource these things. Financial awareness and management, the small guys, they are the ones that absolutely need it the most. And they don't have it because it's unaffordable for them to outsource. So I did it with the intention to be affordable for the small guys so that they could get these essential, I guess, skills or services that their business desperately needs. And so that's how Figured Out came about.
That's very interesting, because we don't really talk about price in our questions today, but I think that is something that we can maybe chat about. But because I think there's also a bit of that mindset that it's an expense, but like you say, I think it's not necessarily a big expense that's needed for what you get. But more importantly, where your journey started, for me, that's so interesting, because I'm a bit of a saveaholic as well. Like, I love savings, and people just don't understand, like, how do I have savings? And I'm like, listen, I go back to the days where my mother used to have little envelopes, because they didn't have such things that we have today, like online banking and whatever it may be. And she had little envelopes, and she had a little black book, and she used to write down the monthly expenses. So I must say my savings also comes back to that. So I think that is fantastic. It doesn't matter where you are in your life, you have to have savings, right? Whether it's a small amount or a large amount, whether it's in your bank account or in a savings or an investment account. I do believe that is important. Just because you have the money available doesn't mean you need to spend it. So I think your concept of what you're saying to help business owners realize, understanding finances is so important, because one would think we leave school with this financial exposure and understanding, but we don't actually have a clue, really.
Yeah.
We kind of see money coming in and then we spend it. And then we get to that point in life, it's like, how much money is enough? Like, it's never going to be enough.
Exactly.
So, okay. So let's go on to the question about bookkeeping versus accounting, because that's a question that I asked, years ago as well, is like, what is the difference? And, like, when do you need a bookkeeper or accountant? Like, maybe just explain the difference for entrepreneurs that perhaps are also wondering, what is the difference?
Okay, so the difference is quite simple. Although in the small business world, bookkeeping and accounting kind of work hand to hand. Okay, the simple definitions: bookkeeping is the recording and organizing of financial transactions. That's both income and expenses. Okay, accounting is then the interpretation of that financial data that those organizations bring. So that becomes more on your projections, your cash flow, with the financial position of the business. That's accounting. So accounting is more analyzing and reporting, whereas bookkeeping is, if you can call it, the groundwork, the grudge work, the bank statements, the reconciliations, the matching. That's bookkeeping. Why I say they go hand in hand in a small business is because generally, if you're going to separate the two, you would have an in-house accounts department that would handle your debtors, creditors, stuff like that, the bookkeeping stuff. And then you would have an outsourced accountant who would then take what the bookkeepers have done internally and then just use that to project and analyze and make decisions for growth and stuff like that. So when you separate the two, bookkeeping and accounting, it's definitely more for your larger businesses that have a in-house finance department and just need the data to be interpreted and stuff like that to make those big financial decisions.
Okay, awesome. So I think that gives us a bit of clarity: bookkeeping, groundwork, accounting, analysis. But as a kind of small business, we kind of consolidate them almost as one. I'm not having to necessarily do our own books and then send it out to an accountant. We'd rather just have a bookkeeper that can then manage that process for us.
Yeah.
Because accounting also has that like factor of, my business is too small. Is there like a rand value when one needs to have an accountant, bookkeeper? Is there anything? I mean, if I'm making 1,000 rand a month, should I have a bookkeeper or accountant?
Absolutely. Okay.
Let's talk about that maybe in our next question, right? So my next question is, because it's true, like when does a business know when they need a bookkeeper, and how can we identify, like, okay, shucks, maybe I need help. Never mind, maybe just battling to invoice, but how can you, or when does an entrepreneur or business owner know?
Okay. So the simple answer is the function of bookkeeping needs to be done from day one. From the first cent that you earn, you need to do bookkeeping. The question becomes as whether you're going to do it yourself or you're going to outsource it. But bookkeeping as a task needs to be done from the first cent. There's a lot of misconception, and I'm finding it more and more often when I speak to people, that they're like, no, we don't really need it because we're too small, or I'm not a registered PTY. I'm just trading as a sole prop. I really don't need bookkeeping and accounting. The answer is yes, you do. The trick is who's going to do that for you. All right. So regardless of the registration status, regardless of the size, regardless of the value or the frequency, quantity of transactions, you need to have it done. How you do it is then the maybe baby. Okay. So there is different ways you can do it from, I don't suggest you do it on paper anymore. That's far too cumbersome. But for the really, really micro ones, you can do a lot of things on Excel if you know what you're doing with Excel. There's cloud accounting, but we'll discuss that a bit later. But definitely the questions that you can ask yourself as a business owner as to whether you do it yourself or whether you are going to outsource it is, first of all, do you have the knowledge necessary to correctly categorize your expenses? Okay, sales is simple. Sales are sales. Doesn't matter where the money's coming from. Depends if it's taxable or not taxable income. So you need to know the difference there. But definitely with expenses, you need to ask yourself, do you have the sufficient knowledge to accurately record and categorize these expenses into the correct accounting categories for tax purposes? Okay. The next question you can ask yourself is, if you do have that knowledge, then the next question you ask yourself is, do you have the time to sit and go through your bank statement, match up your invoices or receipts or slips to those bank transactions, and then run those reports, profit and loss, balance sheets if you're a registered company, debtors analysis, those sorts of things? Do you have the time to sit and do that in your business? Okay. And then the last question, if you've answered yes to both of them, is, can you afford the potential consequences if you do something incorrectly or you miss a return? Can you afford the potential consequences of that?
Okay.
And I think if you answered no to any one of those, then you definitely need to look at outsourcing. If you're quite confident and you answered yes to all of those, then sure, carry on.
Yeah. But I think the key question there then is, when does a business know they need a bookkeeper? From day one. Number one.
They need bookkeeping from day one. If they want, it just depends if they're going to wear that hat themselves or they're going to give it to someone else. But the function of bookkeeping, you need it from the very first cent that goes through your bank accounts.
Agreed. No matter sole proprietor or PTY. And then as Shelly said, looking at those three key things, do you understand the difference? Do you have the time to do it? And what was the third one?
Can you afford the consequences if you make a mistake?
I was just doing some research earlier about accounting and so I hear you in that regard. Be very careful. Okay, yeah. Okay, awesome. So that's another great.
It is the most stressful thing for you to hear that you are being audited from SARS, and then you have to provide all these documents, and it is the single biggest thing. And when you get audited by SARS, they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and it takes one red flag for them to audit you.
Okay, so there we go. Don't matter how big your business is, how small it is, bookkeeping in the sense from day one, obviously managing expenses and income, and then also as you go along, are you still finding the time? And do you want to maybe get the best out of your business too, is another question you can ask yourself. Because when you have someone on your side, they can also help you do it correctly, so you also get the benefit out of it. Okay, so on to one of my nice questions. So thanks for that breakdown, Shelly. I think that was a very good way to explain when to identify it. So let's look at one of my key questions now, the top 3 tips that I like to ask entrepreneurs to share with us. So what 3 things should every business have in place from day one? There we go. Okay, so the Excel document, we've got that tick. Help them with their finances. Okay, because I think, we all kind of jump into something and we spend money before we even know it. And then we get our first first job and we invoice and we're like, yes, I made money. Meanwhile, you've actually spent quite a bit of money probably to get to that point. So help us with some top three things that you feel every business owner should have from day one. And if they don't have it yet, it's okay. It's not too late.
Absolutely. No time like the present.
True.
Okay. So I think your very, very first thing has to be a method to track income and expenses, and then to project that to anticipated turnover and have those kind of nitty-gritty reports that you can really sink your teeth into. Now, whether that be on QuickBooks, Sage, Xero, Excel, whatever method you choose, you need to have a system to manage and track your income versus your expenses. It is the most important thing in a business, or in business finance, I should say.
Totally business as well. I mean, no money, no business.
And then I think the second thing goes hand in hand with that, is a detailed list of your weekly, monthly, and annual expenses. Very often things, and add in that this I use personally as a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, okay, and add in that when they're due, because it can be various times of the month. The thing with business finance is you don't want to be surprised. Okay. How do you pay them? Is it an online subscription? Is it a debit order? Do you have to pay them in EFT? And then where do you pay them from? Is it from one of your savings pockets? Like you were mentioning, the envelopes, online banking, most banks now have these amazing little savings pockets that you can open. And if you are a blue collar staff kind of company, that generally those companies pay their staff and pay their bills on a weekly basis, there are some monthly bills. And then my top tip as a add-on sneak in there for those kind of businesses is divide those monthly bills and annual bills into the number of weeks and months that you have. And so I take my monthly bills, I'll speak from Awesome now, because it is a service-based industry where we pay our expenses weekly. I take our monthly bills and I divide it up into weeks, and each monthly bill I have a savings pocket for monthly bills where those weekly payments go into. I have a savings pocket for annual bills, and I divide those into 40 weeks, not 52, so that if you do have a really bad week or a slip up, it's not the end of the world. And if you don't slip up, you have a little bonus at the end of the year. And so you divide those annual bills down, and what seems to be a massive expense, once off, that could be crippling or it could not maybe crippling, but it could have a serious impact on the cash flow of that small.
Don't want surprises. That's surprise.
Even if you're expecting it, if you have a 6,000 Rand once-off bill for a service-based industry that's used to paying the expenses weekly, that's a hard knock for that week. Whereas if you plan that 6,000 Rand over 40 weeks, maybe it's like $120 a week, that no one feels and is affordable. And when that bill becomes due, it's there and it doesn't come out of cash flow. Okay. And so that's my second thing, is have a detailed list of those expenses, exactly when they're due, how do you need to pay them, and then make the plans to have those funds available when they are needed. And then my third thing is probably to have an annual budget. And I always like to remind myself as well that a budget is a guideline. It's not a target. If we don't hit it, as a budget, an expense budget, let me put that out there. An expense budget is not a target. It's a guideline. All right. So the income
is, at least.
Yeah, the income is a target, but the expense budget is a guideline. So if we don't hit all of those expenses and we manage to spend less, that's a good thing. Okay. But together with that annual budget, you need to have an accountability partner. Okay. A budget is just a piece of paper if no one's going to hold you accountable to it. So whoever that might be, it might be an outsourced bookkeeper, it might be your significant other, it might be your business partner, but you need to have someone to keep you accountable to that budget.
Totally. Oh, I love those. So, I mean, okay, I think you've given us 4 tips, but anyway.
Yeah, I stuck one in there.
Snuck one in. Great one, because I don't personally do that, and I think it's amazing. Look, I don't think my bank does saving pockets, but I definitely can investigate. I'm sure most banks do, have no doubt. But just to recap, so it's definitely a method of tracking income and expenses, right? So whether it's Excel or a cloud accounting system, definitely having a list of expenses with specific timelines to also just be aware when things are coming in and going out. As Shelly said with her slip-in tip, is whether it's a monthly or an annual payment, put the money aside every week. Love that, because totally, I mean, we get surprises of annual bills of certain amounts, and then we're like, shucks, this is a lot to knock out. But yeah, if you've secured that finance, sure, love that. That's definitely something I'm going to look at. So thank you for that. And then lastly is obviously having a bit of a budget. I think that's kind of a control factor is I also say to my clients, when I speak to them, is also have a target. If you need to make X amount of money, then you need to sell X amount of product, or you need to service X amount of clients at X amount of money. You can't be doing business without targets. So I think that comes hand in hand with what we do as well. But definitely, I love the fact that, don't have your expenses as a target. Yeah, that would totally be me. But on the other hand, seriously, have a budget for income. Don't go into business just taking it, month to month to month. Have a plan totally. What is your kind of month to 6 to 12 month goal? And then kind of articulate how you're gonna get that. How many meetings do you have to set up? How much work do you have to done? And have you reached a target this month? And those are things that really keep us inspired and motivated. And some days are good and some months are not as great. And then we pick up new clients and we get extra work and make more money. And then, things look good again. So I do also strongly agree with the annual budget is set your targets and chase them, because otherwise we're just going to get complacent and go from month to month.
I think the biggest thing is, Megs, is that business owners, and especially the small guys, they need to be so aware of their finances. So I think if you can sum up everything into not just from day one, but every single day, you need to have an awareness around your finances, because I think that's where a lot of us small businesses fall short and get ourselves into hot water, is that there isn't that financial awareness. So when a big invoice does come in, we're like, whoop whoop, celebrations, and you sure, by all means, pat yourself on the back. But that financial awareness, if you have that target or those expenses in mind, know that yes, there's a big invoice coming in, but that money has already been set aside and allocated to X, Y, and Z. So what is actually mine is not so big.
Agreed. I think that's a very important factor. And that comes back to our first point about small savings as well, is just because you have a good month doesn't mean that money is available for you to spend, because we also have to anticipate. And or keep a bit of money aside for those December holidays, give yourself a bonus.
Well, that's exactly the thing. I mean, I speak to a lot of my clients are these small owner-operated businesses, and December is one of the worst months for them personally, because blue-collar staff, we all expect bonuses. It's just almost an unwritten rule. And as a small business with blue-collar staff members, you kind of feel bad if you don't give these guys a bonus to go home with, but that bonus then you don't get a bonus. Your prices don't double in December, so your income remains constant. But your expenses double, or at least your wage expenses significantly increase. And it's one of the things that I try and implement with my clients once we've built that level of trust, is I try and implement that with them. And I say to them, right, how much is your December bonuses? In your ideal world, how much would you like to give your staff? And we work that out and we split that over the 40 weeks. And we pay a Mr. Claus as a staff member every single week. And I had an experience with one of my very first clients last year who we implemented that with. And he said he has never, in the 18 years he's been in business, he has never had a more peaceful festive season, a more peaceful December break, where he actually felt relaxed and rejuvenated, purely because he didn't have to worry about that. And in those bonuses, bet your bottom dollar that there's a bonus in there for you.
Yes, of course. Totally. So that's all about that, hey, right? We all work for bonuses at the end of the year. And I agree, isn't it so much nicer to be able to just go and leave knowing that you also could give your team something
Absolutely
extra. So if you don't have a saving pocket, I suggest you go and investigate it today. So just in closing, I also like to throw in a bit of an opinion question in there, because it's always nice to know what everyone else thinks as well. And as technology arises and things start becoming more automated, in your opinion, so now we know cloud accounting is accessible and a new technology and probably quite easy to manage in some cases, or not if you myself. Does that mean there will still be a need for bookkeepers and accountants in the future?
So I absolutely love cloud accounting. I use it every single day. And because I believe in open relationships with my clients. So you're more than welcome to go into your profile at any time and go and pull the reports for yourself if you want to. You can see what's been reconciled, what hasn't. Okay, and so cloud accounting definitely is the way forward, but it still just remains an application tool. The same thing that Excel would have been, or the cash receipts book and the general ledger and all of those things that we used in grade 8, 9 and 10 when we were busy doing accounting and had to do all of those journal entries. It's still, cloud accounting still remains a tool. You need to have the knowledge to use that tool effectively. And so I definitely think there will still always be a place for bookkeepers, accountants. And again, as business grows, business owners need to make the decision that, am I spending time that I could be spending either with family, which is what is actually the foundation of everything, and or on my business, where I'm rather sitting down, spending hours in front of my laptop, because we don't know how to do it properly, and it is a struggle for us. So definitely there'll always be a place for an accountant and a bookkeeper, not only from a knowledge perspective, because knowledge is so widely and easily available nowadays. You can YouTube just about anything, but it's just that time factor, the value that where is your value proposition? Where does your time belong?
Awesome. Okay, love that. I totally agree with you. I also feel, as much as it's been made more accessible and easy for people to use, I guess it's like a lot of these automated things as well. There's always going to be that people factor, and absolutely agree with you. It's kind of one of those tasks within our businesses that we should be rather getting expert advice in, because it's such an important factor of our business, rather becoming like that bit of financial advisory role and giving us key points, as you've mentioned, just with the kind of 40-week thing with that client said to you, he kind of had the best December. Like, those are the differences that a real person brings, I guess, to the relationship than just an accounting software. So even though knowledge is readily available, experience is definitely not, right? So those are things that we can definitely bring to the relationship. Cool. Well, I think that is us for today. And I think it's been an amazing session, and we've definitely got to learn quite a bit more about bookkeeping, accounting, when you need to get it in your business, never too soon, and rather sooner than later, either way, with some key tips for us to definitely help us in our businesses as well. So thank you so much again for sharing with us, Shelly. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we look forward to having some better financial successes in our business.
Absolutely. Look forward to figuring it out.
That we will indeed, right? Great. So if you enjoyed the interview, thanks so much. Please do give us a like, give us a comment, ask me a question, and or then subscribe. We do bring some amazing content, both marketing and business, on a weekly basis. So definitely to empower you along your marketing and entrepreneurial journey. So until next week, Friday, have a super day and happy Friendly Fridays. Till then, cheers.
Bye.